What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Tuesday, September 24th, 2024, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now it is 15:35 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from the Middle East and from Eastern Europe. So Hezbollah has officially sent a warning to Israelis in northern Israel, telling them to leave the area of Haifa and northern Israel. And they said in the warning, quote, "The dangerous areas containing a red circle must be evacuated." So here you can see this warning from Hezbollah. It's written in Arabic, and you can see this red circle showing the area where Hezbollah plans to target with rockets, and they are warning Israeli civilians to leave the area, and they're telling them to go down to Tel Aviv or Eilat. So this is very, very concerning. Also, Lebanon's health ministry is claiming that the death toll from the massive Israeli airstrikes on Lebanon the last 48 hours has reached 558. Okay, so almost 600 people killed in these Israeli airstrikes on Hezbollah the last 2 days. We don't know if that's true or not. We don't know if these are all Hezbollah operatives or civilians, but this is what Lebanon's health ministry is saying. And we now know that at least 16 C-17 Globemasters and 13 KC-135 aerial refuelers were involved in the movement of equipment and troops to the Middle East by the United States. And we have a screenshot of all of these C-17s and KC-135s going over the Atlantic on the flight tracker, and this was the day before the Pentagon announced that they were moving troops to the Middle East for the possibility of evacuations of military personnel, government personnel, and also civilians, American civilians. Okay, so very concerning. And here's the screenshot. You can see all these C-17s and KC-135s going over the Atlantic to Ramstein and to the Middle East. So the U.S. is preparing for a massive full-scale war in the Middle East between Israel and Hezbollah and possibly Iran as well. And officials with the Lebanese Interior Ministry have stated that over 50,000 refugees are fleeing from southern and eastern Lebanon towards the northwestern part of Lebanon, with 20,000 staying in shelters established across the country, including more than 10,000 in 45 schools in the Beirut municipality. Okay, so 50,000 plus people evacuating from southern Lebanon. Okay, clearly a sign that war is imminent. Now, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, is still going to New York City this week for the UN General Assembly. So I don't think that the war is going to start until the General Assembly is over. Same thing with the Ukraine deep strikes on Russia. I don't think that's going to happen until after the General Assembly. And according to Israeli and Western officials who spoke to Axios, since Israel's air campaign over Lebanon began yesterday, Hezbollah has begged several times for Iran to join the war and launch an attack on Israel, with Iran stating, quote, "The timing isn't right for an attack," because of Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian's visit to the UN General Assembly in New York City. Okay, so Iran is delaying any kind of attack on Israel because of the General Assembly. So I think this weekend and next week is when we're going to see things really kick off. And Air France has suspended all flights to and from Beirut International Airport until October the 1st. And Iran's president told CNN that Hezbollah cannot stand alone against Israel. basically hinting that Iran is going to back up Hezbollah when Israel attacks them and invades southern Lebanon. And the Israeli Air Force unleashed around 2,000 munitions on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon over the last 24 hours, releasing new footage to back the claims. According to the IDF, Israeli Air Force fighter jets obliterated around 1,500 Hezbollah sites, while drones took out hundreds more. And Israel's UN ambassador Danny Danon told reporters on Tuesday that Israel prefers a diplomatic solution in Lebanon to deal with the Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah, but would use other methods to show, quote, "we mean business." Wow. And addressing the UN General Assembly today, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said the system of the United Nations and the values championed by the West are dying in Gaza as the death toll soars. Quote, "Not only children are dying in Gaza, the United Nations system is also dying. The truth is dying. The values that the West claims to defend are dying. The hopes of humanity to live in a fairer world are dying one by one," end quote, he said. Speaking at the UN General Assembly, Erdogan condemned Israel's actions in Gaza. He called for world leaders to stop Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's pursuit of the war and criticized countries who support his government. Quote, "I call out to the United Nations Security Council, what are you waiting for to prevent the genocide in Gaza, to put a stop to this cruelty, this barbarianism," end quote, he said. So very strong words from Erdogan criticizing Israel and Netanyahu. And NORAD, that's North American Aerospace Defense Command, detected and tracked 4 Russian military aircraft operating in the Alaskan Air Defense Identification Zone on September 23rd, which is yesterday. The Russian aircraft remained in international airspace and did not enter American or Canadian sovereign airspace. So that's pretty concerning. And over the last 2 weeks, there's been a lot of Russian aircraft flying towards Alaska. We had like 3 or 4 days in a row, I think it was like the 13th, 14th, and 15th, where Russia sent a pair of AWACS planes. These are intelligence planes and battlefield command planes up towards Alaska, and in response, the U.S. deployed troops to a remote island right on the border with Russia. So this is very, very bad, guys. Okay, if Russia is sending reconnaissance planes to Alaska and then we respond by deploying troops to this remote island in Alaska, that's a bad sign. It means Russia's collecting information on Alaska. And Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, said in an interview with ABC News last night that Russia wanted to occupy the Sumy Oblast in Ukraine, and this was the reason for the Kursk operation. He also said that his victory plan is not about negotiations with Russia, and it does not provide for any concessions to Russia. And the victory plan consists of 5 points and is aimed at forcing Russia to stop the war. So very interesting. The reason why Ukraine invaded Russia, the Kursk Oblast, was to supposedly prevent a Russian operation into Sumy, which makes sense because Russia was shelling Sumy for the entire duration of the war continuously, and Zelensky confirming that his plan does not include negotiations or concessions with Russia. So what does that mean? That means escalation is going to continue. And he said that he does not believe that Putin is ready for real negotiations now. He also said that Russia took pictures of Ukraine's nuclear facilities because they are preparing strikes against them. Wow. And the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, has ordered his generals to prepare for war. So here we have the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, and he's speaking here to his generals, okay, ordering them to prepare for war.
Я этого не слышал, и слава Богу. Но мы всегда считали и считаем, что нынешняя война без беспилотников невозможна. Сегодня он сказал, что как бы там ни было, беспилотники, они могут повернуть войну, развернуть и так далее, но без солдата, без надежного оружия у этого солдата мы не сможем обороняться в Беларуси.
And a Yak-130 fighter jet of the Belarusian Air Force entered Ukrainian airspace earlier this morning. Ukrainian monitors specified that the Belarusian plane flew on the border of the Kyiv and Zhytomyr regions. Later, the aircraft disappeared from radar. Wow, so a Belarusian fighter jet flew into Ukraine along the border of Kyiv and Zhytomyr regions. So very, very interesting. That's close to the capital. So it looks like Belarus is getting ready to help Russia attack the capital of Ukraine once again. Maybe they're going to try to take the capital again soon. We'll have to wait and see. And Estonia and Finland plan to close the Gulf of Finland to Russian ships and block access to the Baltic Sea, supposedly. And a fire in Belgorod, Russia was reported after shelling and air defense activity. Here's that fire. So this is inside of Russia. Looks like Ukraine hit some kind of target there. And here's the official press release from NORAD about the Russian aircraft in the Alaskan ADIZ. Very concerning. And I want to remind you guys that Ukraine detonated this massive ammunition depot in Russia, and the explosion looked like a nuclear bomb going off. Check this out. Look at that bright flash and the huge mushroom cloud, and there you can see the pressure wave building up, the blast wave. I mean, absolutely insane. We're now hearing that Ukraine destroyed 30,000 tons of ammunition in this strike. Okay, so look at that. That is just absolutely insane. I'm sure Putin is not happy about that. And one person was killed and 8 wounded as a result of a Russian airstrike on the city of Kharkiv in Ukraine with Fab 500 glide bombs. Apparently, in total, 3 Russian Sukhoi 34 bombers launched 8 glide bombs towards the city. So where these bombers take off from are probably going to be targeted by Ukraine in the coming weeks when they do their massive deep strike on Russia. They're going to go after all of these bases where these bombers take off from. And units of Ukraine's military intelligence have fully cleared the Vovchansk machinery plant from Russian troops. So if you guys remember, Vovchansk was this city that the Russians were trying to take over in Ukraine near Kharkiv Oblast. And it looks like the Ukrainians have pushed them out. Okay, so Russia is losing ground in Kharkiv, and they're losing their own territory in Kursk. So it's not looking too good for Russia right now. And Biden said at the UN General Assembly today that Putin failed to reach his goals in Ukraine. And one of the issues to be hotly debated at the UN this year is reforming the Security Council, which was formed from the ashes of World War II. The problem with it is that the 5 Security Council members are permanent and can dictate issues. For example, Russia, being a permanent member, has vetoed resolutions on Ukraine. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned that the UN Security Council has become outdated and its authority is eroding. Unless its composition and working methods are reformed, it will eventually lose all credibility, he warned. We must take the first decisive steps towards updating and reforming international cooperation to make it more networked, fair, and inclusive. So that's what he said. Want to just show you guys some flight paths. We have a lot of activity over the United States today. Again, U.S. nuclear forces are still on high alert. So here you can see 2 B-52 nuclear bombers airborne this afternoon over New Mexico. We also have a nuclear war command and control plane up in the air over Arkansas, and it was actually flying with its transponder off, which is very, very unusual. Normally these planes have their transponders on, but it turned its transponder on somewhere in southwestern Virginia. We also have another aerial refueler that left Pittsburgh and went out to the Atlantic off the coast of Virginia. They've been going there every single day for the last few days. They're obviously refueling something out here, maybe sub hunters, maybe who knows what. We also had a Cobra ball up in the air last night in the East China Sea near the Korean Peninsula, and my guess is it was probably keeping an eye on a possible North Korean missile test that could be imminent. So a Cobra ball is a special plane used to detect and track the trajectory of ballistic missiles. And then there was also a sub hunter active in South Korea at the same time. We had more U.S. and NATO reconnaissance over Europe last night. Here we have an RC-135 Rivet Joint reconnaissance plane that flew all the way up to northern Norway near Russia's Northern Fleet base, where they have 2/3 of their nuclear-armed subs, and then it came down through Finland along the border of Russia, did a couple of loops here near St. Petersburg, Russia, and then it went down through the Baltics along the border of Russia and Belarus, and then through northern Poland along the Polish-Russian border. So very interesting. And then here we have some VIP movement in Russia. So one plane heading towards New York City for the UN General Assembly, and then one special flight squadron plane leaving the capital of Iran and going to Moscow. This could have been even Putin or someone very, very high up in the Russian government. Okay, very concerning. So that's the latest breaking news that I have. I will be back later on tonight with more breaking news, but get prepared, guys. It looks like Belarus is getting ready for war. We don't know if they're going to try to attack Poland or the Baltics or Ukraine, okay, but Belarus is getting ready for war. Now, their military is a joke, but they do have Russian nuclear missiles now, so that could be a problem. And if they try to attack Poland or the Baltics, then Poland will respond and annihilate Belarusian military sites, and then that could cause an escalation because Russia would get involved and back up Belarus. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But the situation between Israel and Hezbollah is escalating as well. But I will be back later on tonight with more breaking news. So until then, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere.